Okay, let's start. Welcome back to our uh, LLM Frontier workshop. We are about to end our workshop, so this is the session before the last. Next week will be the last session. I hope everyone can join us. And today we'll be presenting a Gradio, which is a tool to make create interfaces with the large language models. And today, Enrique will be presenting the the notebook. So, so welcome back. I'm going the notes for today. I'm going to post it through the chat so everyone can follow. I have shared, yeah, the notes. So, so thank you for connecting, Enrique. You can start your presentation. I'm just going to give you the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Okay. Great. So today we're going to speak about Gradio or Gradio. I'm not sure how to spell it. Usually we display notebooks on Google Cloud, but for some reason there's some technical limitation in Gradio that it doesn't work perfectly on Collab, so it still loads, but it doesn't display the styles. So instead, I decided that I was going to run the Jupyter notebook locally. It's inconsequential for you if you're following and try to replicate this. You can do it on your own computer, and it should work. So the first step that you need to do is that you need to install Gradio, and we're going to install some dependencies, transformers. But what is Gradio? Before diving into it, I want to spend a minute or two explaining what's its role. So if you're developing AI-powered applications that use Hugging Face, PyTorch, or something that uses Python, any basic data science pipeline, and you want to present your work to your colleagues or to your boss, or just like post it on the internet to start growing nowadays. You want to, I mean, maybe you want, but you need to spend some time learning and going through a learning curve to learn web development or React or any other UI framework. Instead, you can leverage your already existing Python knowledge and start putting together a user interface that wraps around your Python code. Gradio is pretty much that. So it is assigned to take Python functions and put a user interface on top of Python functions. And there are two ways to go about it. First, we are going to use the interface API, and then we're going to go to the blocks API. You're going to see what are the difference. They have pros and cons. But depending on what you want to do, you can choose your own. So as I was mentioning, Gradio is a rapid prototype UI, and you can quickly develop machine user interface around functions. So I want to start by just doing a dummy test function that is called grid. Let me make this larger. So hopefully font size is better now. So this is a run-of-the-mill Python function. It's called grid. It has one parameter, which is name, and it returns a string, gridding whoever calls it. Its argument is string, and it returns another string. Excuse me. So we can create a simple graphical user interface around it. And if you're working on a Jupyter notebook, you need to load this extension that installs with Gradio. But once you do it, you just need to import Gradio. We're going to add a shortcut name as ER, just to use it as a namespace. And I want you to take a look at this specific piece of code. We're going to create an interface object from Gradio that takes a function as a parameter, and we specify what are the types of the inputs and the outputs. We're going to call it demo. So when we do this, Gradio creates user interface elements that map in what are the inputs of functions and receive the outputs, and then we can basically type whatever we do. So my name is Enrique, and we're gonna submit it. Gradio is going to take this input. It is going to run the function. We're specifying grid here, and then it's going to collect the output of grid, and then it's going to put it into the output fields. So there is more stuff that Gradio allows you to do. So if you're using the defaults, you have the option to clear the input, to try it again. You can flag these for data labeling in the future and so forth. And the way it does this is that this is a Python interface that behind the scenes, it instantiates a web server. And you can see it here because you can actually open it from the browser. And it creates a web application with JavaScript. It actually uses Svelte, which is a cool, hip UI framework. It is pretty cool. I've taken a look, but I digress. So using that, then instead of having someone open a command prompt and then running your Python script and editing the code, or you're opening IPython, you can make it more accessible in that sense. So this is the bare bones example, but the real idea behind this is that we want to demo any type of function. So there are other type of controls, depending on what are the data types. So right now, we're going to redefine the grid function, and we're going to take another parameter that we're going to call it intensity. So here, what this is going to do is that it's going to say hello again to the color function, but it's going to add exclamation marks the number of times that you set intensity. So that means that it could be like a neutral grid in which there's no exclamation mark if intensity equals 0, or it could be very strong if we add something else. This is a numerical value. So if you observe again on the inputs, we need now to define a list in which the first input, which corresponds to the first parameter of the function, is text. And the second one is a numerical value, but we can have control on how do we request that number. It could be a text box as well, but we could use a slider. So let's see what happens here. So again, my name is Enrique, and we're gonna set this to 10. Let's just slide it all the way to the right. Let's just submit it. We're gonna run, and then like it did all the wiring for us. So it takes the inputs from the user interface, wires them to the grid function, and collects the result. So what else can we do with Gradio? Suppose that we have more complex function with multiple outputs as well as multiple inputs. Here an example below, we're going to define a function that takes a string, a Boolean value, and a number, and then returns another string and a number. So here, our function grid now is going to tell us either good morning or good evening, depending on the time of the day. And it's also going to tell us the weather report or the forecast for today or tonight. Then we're going to display or give the result on Celsius. So this is just like a basic arithmetic code inside the function. Let's see what type of controls we can add. So we can specify that we want a checkbox. Or maybe we want this to be What else could be? I'm not sure. Yes, let's just leave it that way. So Enrique, or let's just call this Carlos. Today is the morning and the temperature, so it's getting cooler. I'm not sure what's the temp in Tucson, so it's probably, I don't know, 85. So we set the temperature on Fahrenheit and we're gonna get Celsius. Good morning, Carlos. Today is 85 degrees, but then the conversion was to Celsius, which is almost 30 degrees Celsius. But what if this it's tonight? It changes to good evening. So far you can see what is the principle behind Gradio. But there's much more than that. So the real strength is not to provide basic user controls, but we can display images, we could display videos, or we could display audio as well. So let's get more let's do something a little bit more interesting now. Let's just code a function that takes as input an image and applies a sepia filter. So this a sepia filter is, you can think about an image as a bitmap, in which each pixel is represented by 3 numbers that map to RGB. We can do linear transformation using this matrix such that the color is mapped to the sepia color tone. And this is exactly what we're doing. On the sepia function, we define that linear transformation, which is this array or matrix, and then we are doing the dot product between the image and that sepia filter. Once we do that, we normalize it and then we return it. So we're just doing some math between it. But when we went to this, there were making many assumptions already. The first one is that input image is already a bitmap. That's not necessarily true. So it depends, like when you load a file, is it JPEG, is it GIF, is it PNG, is it an SVG? So there are all these multiple formats that you need to load and you need to decode into bitmap information. Some of those are going to be compressed, some of those are going to be vectorized and need to be rendered, and some of those are going to be already like on a raw format. So one of the nice things about Gradio is that it takes care of that for us. We just need to provide the file, and we can use the image control for that. So we're going to create an interface around the sepia function. And I'm not explicitly saying that this is the inputs because it's the first parameter, but it is. So we get an image, we can create an instance of the image control, or we can also specify the type by its name. So let's see what happens here. Similarly, so we get the control, but I want you to look here how we have this upload control. So let's use just random image. Maybe I can use my webcam. Hold on. Open this. So this is another instructor of Data Lab. So you need to see that this is full color. If we submit it, it goes to sepia. So this was a JPEG file, but now we get it again as a bitmap. We didn't have to do anything. We can download it again and so forth. So this is one of the nice things about Gradio. You can do the same thing with audio, with video. It'll take care of all the data handling for you. You can also provide extra data to the user interface, and this could be helpful to demonstrate how different types of inputs the model expect. So let's do a quick calculator. We have a calculator function that takes the 2 arguments and an operator, depending on like this is very rudimentary. You would never do this in real life, but depending on what's the string, you're gonna execute what you want. And you can throw an exception. For example, if we were doing a division, we cannot divide at 0. So instead of catching detection, we're just checking it before and raising another exception just to make the argument. On interface, we provide the function, which is calculator. We provide inputs, which are number, the radio button, that is just basically a multiple choice or a single, just pick one choice between this and another number, which is the other argument, return number, but we want to provide these examples. So this is just test cases that you may want to try. And you can customize the user interface a little bit as well, adding a title or a description. So this is the title that we added, this is the description. And then if I scroll down a little bit more on the examples, like out of examples, we can select one. So let's divide pi by 2. And if we click it, you can see how it pre-selected those inputs, and we can just submit it. We could clear it, and then we can choose another one, like 45 plus 3. It populates them, but now let's just change it to subtraction. So if you're creating a demo or a prototype, this comes handy because like you could pre-populate the image or pre-populate the video to showcase your own transformer. So all of this is fun, but this has been game so far. Like, why would you want to do this? Like, if you're showcasing pretty basics applications, the real intention behind Gradio is to showcase machine learning applications. And as a matter of fact, Gradio was acquired by Hugging Face a couple of years ago, and it plays real nice with all of its code infrastructure. So let's do that. Let's just create a text classifier, or not create it, but just load it and then build a small user interface behind it. So you can import the pipeline function from transformers. This is in Hugging Face code, and we can pre-populate it with one of the existing pipelines. One of those is text classification. Text classification is going to tell us if something is positive, negative, or neutral, and it's going to give us a score. So in here, we're loading that text classification pipeline, and then we're creating a function that takes an input string, runs that classifier pipeline. The results contain, since it could be batched, they're a list. We're just interested in the first one. So we choose the label and we choose the score and return it as a tuple. If we run an example input, this movie was awesome, you'll see that this is a positive, it has positive sentiment, and it has a confidence of 0.999, which is pretty strong. So what if we want to use the interface API to do it, to build the UI around it? Easy peasy, right? So create interface, specify that function that we just coded, tell the input types, tell the output types. So we have a tuple. The first element is the class label. The second is the confidence score. And then let's just add some styling. Title, description. This is the Stillbird classifier because it uses that model and that architecture. I didn't, and let's just try it. I didn't like the movie. So it is pretty sure that it's native. Let's try something different. I count on things about the movie. It's not as explicit, so you can say that our classifier still thinks that it's native, but it has a confidence of 0.64 instead of 0.99. I'm hitting at Apple, so let's see what happens here. So for whatever reason, it thinks that this is positive. So this must be a binary classifier, and that's why it's choosing one against the other. But you get the point. So you can build this user interface around a Hugging Face model and start doing cool stuff. So so far this has been useful, but you might be already one step ahead of me, thinking that, yeah, I want to have like finer grade controls about where do I place the controls. I want a specific layout. I want to connect the different controls with each other, and I want to do some more complex interaction besides just a simple Python function. You can achieve that using the blocks API, which is the second modality of Gradio. So with interface, we were just grabbing a function and adding a user interface on top of it. With the blocks API, we build a user interface, and then we manually configure how do the controls interact with each other and which function or functions do we call. So the trade-off that you do is that with the blocks API, you as a developer are responsible of how it works. You need to do some configuration behind the scenes, but you get much more potential about what you could create. You could do a full-fledged application using the blocks API. So how does that translate into code? How different is the code? Let's take a look at that. So, as I mentioned before, I like to start with a basic example. Let's define the update function that takes as input name and just return the greeting, greeting to that function caller. And let's use blocks now. So usually what you do is that using the with statement within Python, you create a blocks environment that we're going to call demo. Then you start creating Gradio controls. As you are creating them, they are added to the user interface. So the first thing that we want to do is that we want to add some markdown title, and then we want to add a row such that we have elements besides each other, and then we specify what are the inputs and the outputs. So below the title, we have one row that has two text boxes. The first one is the input, and it has a placeholder, the value that says, what is your name? The second one is the output. It's going to show to the right. And then we add a button that says run. So far we've created the user interface, but then we need to wire together the button with the input and output. To do that, you take the handle to the button control that you created, and then you specify what is the function. So the function is update, and the inputs are imp and out, which are the handles as well. And we basically get the same demo that we had. My name is Enrique Noriega. Just run it. Welcome to Gradio. So you can see that this required significantly more lines of code. As opposed to one, we had to create two environments to start adding imperatively the controls to the user interface. But where it becomes interesting is how we can leverage pre-existing components and do some really cool stuff. We could use, like, one of the most popular ones is the chat interface. Because, like nowadays, everybody wants to build a chatbot. So Gradio already comes with one built for you. So it contains the components that handle standard features of a chatbot. And they're ready to be connected with your LLM. The LLM could be whatever, like it could be ChatGPT, it could be Llama with whatever API you program framework that you prefer. So let's take a look at that. Let's just build the basic one. We're going to create one called your personal yes man. And what it does is that wherever you tell it, it's going to tell you yes. So let's just run it to show it. And let me scroll down a little bit more. So you can see here that there are many elements to this user interface. We have this chatbot window that will show that it contains a conversation. It has multiple buttons already pre-programmed to do stuff like clearing out the conversation, undo the last message that was sent, or retry the same message without showing it twice. Let's just ask it something. Am I the coolest instructor Yes, I hope so. Yes. So this is a conversation. You can see that there are thumbs down and thumbs up. And I can click here. So if I scroll down a little bit, you see that there's a message about this response. I can click here and it'll say that I've downloaded this response. Clear it. Are you sure? Since there's nothing else, I could expect it to ask me, sure about what? But no, it is telling me yes, because if we scroll up a little bit up to the code, we see that regardless of what is the message that we send and what is the history of that conversation, that response is going to be yes. So using the vote function, we can keep track, say that you are deploying this chatbot for real into an application, and you want to keep track from the feedback of the users. You could store those interactions in a database, like your labels, depending on what is the lag data, the value of the lag data. This could go into MongoDB, Redis, or SQLite, whatever. In order to wire these two together, we just need to create the chatbot instance, which is a blocks control. Then out of this chatbot instance, or this handle, we wire the vote function to functionality, and then we create a chat interface around the chatbot using the jest function. So we're going to tinker a little bit with this, but this jest function could be what directs the conversation through interfacing with an LLM. So given that we have this, something that would be really cool is if we can actually build a real chatbot using Gradio and an LLM. So for that, you will need to install, we're going to use LangChain. You could do it. You could use OpenAI's API, you could use Llama Index, or whatever tool you like the most. But right now, I like LangChain, so let's just try it. And let's just replace the jest function with something that actually calls the LLM. So this notebook was created using considering AI Verde, which is our own LLM hosted engine on the UFA. But there's a UITS maintenance window running right now, so it's unavailable. But fortunately, I have Llama installed on my computer, so we could replace Verde with Llama running locally on the same computer that I'm running the notebook using LangChain as well. So this will be exactly the same. I'll walk you through the components. So we have multiple import statements that encode the classes that we're going to use. We're going to import the API key. So if you're using AI Verde, you should have an API key in order to be able to connect. And we defined what is the API endpoint. So this is the URL to connect to Verde using API access. Then you would use LangChain to create an instance of chat OpenAI and specify which LM you want. Right now, since it's down, I replace this line with chat Llama, which is going to connect to Llama on my local computer. I'm going to tell it that I want to use Llama 3.1. Then I'm going to create a chat conversation template. So if you were on the introduction to LangChain session, this could be familiar to you, but otherwise you can look at the recording. You need to set a system prompt to give the element role. So I want to do something fun. I'm asking it to speak as if Llama was Mario from Super Mario Bros. And I was a gamer. Then I'm going to add the conversation using this placeholder value, and I'm going to pass the latest message that I submit through Gradio to this conversation template. Then I'm going to use the LangChain L-cell syntax to map the conversation template, pass it to the LLM, and fetch the string output to return and display it. So this is going to be the replacement of a, part of our replacement of the jest function. Once we have this, we can create the send message function that takes us, this is a signature that Gradio is giving us already. It'll give us the message as the first argument and the history. So the history are the messages that were sent previously, as well as the responses from the LLM. So what we're going to do is that we're going to massage the history to a format that LangChain understands. We just need to add a human or AI label to the message pairs that appear in history. And then we can invoke this chain, this LangChain pipeline with the messages of the template. So in conversation, we put history, and in message, we put the message directly. So let's try this. Let's run it. So all of this is just the engine preparation of this could be your AI app, and we're going to just connect it to Gradio. So similarly here, I am repeating mostly the same. We have that same upvote recording function, and then we're going to change the title, but instead of passing the jest function, we're going to pass send message as the main function to the chat interface. So let's see. Hello. Now it's taking a little bit longer because the LLM is actively running, but it'll come back. All right, it's me, Mario. Just got back from rescuing Princess Peach from a Bowser castle. What's new with you? You a fan of Mushroom Kingdom 2? Yes. Can I go? So sure, that'd be fantastic, right? Power jump through castles, avoid the Goombas, and collect coins. That sounds pretty compelling. But now let's just ask what is the most burning question that I have. When are you going to appear again in PlayStation 5? From during talks. So obviously this is hallucinated, but let's undo this. Let's say Xbox Series X. So you can see that we can use these pre-coded controls to edit the conversation slightly. You could retry it and see what is the difference. Sure. I mean, this is not real. This is just the response out of the LM. But you see what is the power here. So in order to create this user interface, if you're doing it by yourself, you need to spend quite a lot of time on building these reusable components, knowing how to use frameworks such as React, JS, or I don't know, Svelte, or I forgot what was the name of Google's one. But with Gradio, I don't really have to be an expert using or creating front-end applications or user interfaces. Instead, I know my Python, and I can use that knowledge to show stuff. So thinking outside the burden of learning how to create user interfaces makes me a better communicator when I'm showing demos for a class or for my boss, or if I create a paper and I want to create like show my model with a user interface, I can easily use Gradio. There are alternatives such as Streamlit or others, but like pick the one that you like the most. The principles behind them are the same. And I also want to tell you that you can easily deploy these Gradio apps using Hugging Face spaces for free. That means that right now the code you're looking at runs in Jupyter and runs locally on my computer. But what if you want to post it online? Instead of having to pay for some web hosting and having to go through the burden of learning how to deploy a web application or a Gradio application, you can use a Hugging Face spaces. And if you actually know some JavaScript, or you want to, I don't know, like add a custom control, you can use JavaScript to code them as well. So in reality, this is a very powerful framework that will allow you to get that extra mile when you're communicating your results or showing your prototypes. All right, so that's all that I have for today, and I want to give you a sneak peek. We're going to use the code that we presented today to build a RAG chatbot next week. So that's going to be pretty cool. And it's going to be the culmination of all the different pieces and components that we put together throughout this workshop. So I'm excited about it, and I hope that you are too. If you have any questions, we still have a couple minutes.
Enrique,
Hey,
hi. Is Gradio something where you could develop an interface that you could upload, say, a data file of some sort? Maybe I have a CSV file of text that could be dropped into Gradio. It could process it sort of behind the scenes and then return some results out of that.
I think so. So I'm not sure if there's like any arbitrary file control, but I think that yes.
Okay.
So what would happen is that you'll need to define a Python function that will get the file name, and you can use pandas to load it and then do whatever you need to do. ChatGPT said that you could reverse engineer screenshot of buttons, and yeah, I mean that would be like Inception, right? Using AI to build the code to show your AI. But yes,
Okay.
that's totally possible.
Yeah.
That would be a fun experiment.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That was very interesting.
Thank you.